She looked at my hoodie, then at my boarding pass, and laughed in my face. She told me the cleaning crew needed to use the rear entrance. She didn't know that the plane she was standing on was technically mine. When a flight attendant on a power trip decides to humiliate a black woman in seat 1A, she forgets one crucial rule: check the manifest. Minutes after she called security to drag me off, I didn't just get an apology. I shut down the entire aircraft's operating system with a single text message. Get ready, because this is the story of the most expensive mistake in aviation history. The air inside the jet bridge at JFK smelled like recycled coffee and expensive perfume. It was a smell Dr. Nia Sterling usually associated with progress, but today it smelled like a headache waiting to happen. Nia adjusted the strap of her worn-out leather duffel bag. She wasn't dressed for the part of a VIP. She was wearing a faded MIT astrophysics hoodie, black leggings and sneakers that had seen better days. She had been up for 48 hours straight, debugging the guidance software for the new Horizon 7 satellite system, and all she wanted was a glass of champagne and 6 hours of sleep before landing in London. She approached the door of the massive Boeing 737-300ER. Standing at the entrance, acting as the gatekeeper to luxury, was Tiffany. Tiffany was the kind of flight attendant who wore her uniform like armor. Her blonde hair was pulled back so tight it looked painful. Her red lipstick was applied with surgical precision, and her name tag, Tiffany Senior Purser, glinted under the fluorescent lights. She was currently smiling brightly at a man in a bespoke grey suit. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Kensington," Tiffany cooed, practically bowing. "Seat 2A. Let me take your coat." Mr. Kensington walked past. Nia stepped up. Tiffany's smile vanished instantly. It didn't fade. It was deleted. Her eyes raked over Nia's hoodie, lingered on her natural hair, and then dropped to the sneakers. "Boarding pass," Tiffany said. Her voice was flat, cold. No welcome, no good morning. Nia held out her phone. The screen displayed the QR code for seat 1A, the most exclusive suite on the plane. Tiffany didn't scan it immediately. She stared at Nia. "Miss, I think you're confused. Economy boarding is in Group 4. We're currently only seating first class and Diamond Medallion members." "I know," Nia said, her voice raspy from exhaustion. "I'm in 1A. Tiffany let out a short, sharp laugh, a sound like glass breaking. 1A. Honey, 1A is a suite. It costs $12,000 for a one-way ticket. Did you maybe use a screenshot of someone else's ticket?" The line behind Nia was growing. A man behind her sighed loudly. "Scan the code, Tiffany," Nia said, her patience thinning. Tiffany bristled at the use of her name. She snatched the scanner from the counter and aimed it at Nia's phone, aggressively expecting the harsh buzz of a rejection. Beep. Green light. Passenger Sterling Nia. Seat 1A. Tiffany stared at the device. She hit the refresh button. It beeped green again. She looked at Nia, her eyes narrowing. Instead of apologizing, she handed the scanner back with a sneer. "Machine must be glitching today. I'll have to verify this manually with the gate agent later. But go ahead. Try not to block the aisle while you look for space for that." She pointed a manicured finger at Nia's duffel bag. "My bag fits in the overhead," Nia said calmly, stepping onto the plane. "Actually," Tiffany said, stepping in front of her, blocking the way. "The overhead bins in first are reserved for suitcases. That gym bag needs to be checked. I can tag it for you now. It'll come out on the carousel in London." "It contains sensitive electronics," Nia said, her eyes locking onto Tiffany's. "It stays with me." Per airline policy, it fits under the seat if need be. Fine, Tiffany huffed, stepping aside as if Nia carried a contagious disease. Just don't expect me to lift it for you. Nia walked past her, hearing Tiffany whisper to a junior attendant, "Check the fraud list. Nobody dresses like a hobo in first unless they scammed the miles." Nia didn't look back. She knew exactly who she was. She was the CEO of Ether Dynamics, and more importantly, her company had just designed the encryption protocols for this specific plane's avionics system. She wasn't just a passenger. In a way, she was the landlord, and the tenant was about to get very rowdy. Nia settled into Suite 1A. It was a sanctuary. The leather was soft, the legroom infinite. She placed her bag carefully under the ottoman. She pulled out her laptop, a custom-built machine with a casing made of raw carbon fiber, and opened it. She ignored the glare Tiffany shot her from the galley. 10 minutes passed. Other passengers filed in. Most were wealthy businessmen or celebrities. They gave Nia curious looks, but most ignored her. Then he walked in. He was a man in his late 20s, wearing a polo shirt with a popped collar and holding a phone to his ear. He was loud. "Yeah, bro, I'm telling you I got the upgrade. My dad knows the VP of operations. Yeah. First class." He stopped at row 1. He looked at his boarding pass, which clearly said, "Seat 4D, business class, not first." And then he looked at Nia in 1A. He frowned. He waved Tiffany over. "Excuse me," the man said, snapping his fingers. "Stewardess." Tiffany appeared instantly, her fake smile plastered back on. "Yes, Mr. Brock. How can I help you?" "There's a mistake," Brock said, pointing at Nia. "I requested the bulkhead suite. My legs are long. I need the space. Why is she in it?" Tiffany looked at Brock, then at Nia. She saw an opportunity. Brock was wearing a Rolex. A fake one, Nia noted instantly. The bezel was too thick. He looked like the kind of passenger Tiffany wanted to impress. Nia looked like trouble. "Let me check the manifest, Mr. Brock," Tiffany lied. She tapped on her tablet, not actually checking anything. She lowered her voice, conspiring with him. Sometimes the system assigns seats to standby passengers when it thinks the cabin is empty. It's a glitch. Tiffany walked over to Nia's suite. She didn't knock on the privacy divider. She just leaned over. "Ma'am," Tiffany said loudly, "I need to see your boarding pass again." Nia didn't look up from her screen. She was coding. "You already scanned it." "I need to see it again," Tiffany snapped. "We have a double booking. This gentleman, Mr. Brock, has a priority claim on this seat." Nia paused. She slowly took off her noise-cancelling headphones. She turned to look at Brock, who was smirking, and then at Tiffany. "Priority claim?" Nia asked smoothly. "I purchased this ticket full fare 3 weeks ago. There is no double booking." "Look," Brock interjected, leaning in. "I'm a Platinum Elite member. You're probably just on an employee pass or points, right? Why don't you just move back to row 4? It's still a nice seat. You get free warm nuts." He winked at Tiffany. Tiffany giggled. "Ma'am?" Tiffany said, her voice dropping the customer service facade entirely. "Mr. Brock is one of our most valued flyers. Standard protocol is to accommodate our elites. I'm going to have to ask you to move to seat 4D. It's a window seat. You'll like it." "No," Nia said. The cabin went silent. "Excuse me?" Tiffany asked, blinking. "I said no," Nia repeated. "I paid for 1A. I am staying in 1A. If Mr. Brock wants a suite, he should have bought one. Now please get out of my face so I can finish my work." Tiffany's face turned a blotchy shade of red. She wasn't used to being told no, certainly not by someone wearing a hoodie. "Listen to me," Tiffany hissed, leaning in so close her perfume was suffocating. "I don't know who you think you are, but on this plane, I am the authority. If you create a disturbance, I can have you removed. Do you want to go to London, or do you want to go to jail?" Naya stared at her. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm giving you a choice," Tiffany said. "Move to seat 4D, or I call the captain and tell him we have a belligerent passenger refusing crew instructions." Naya closed her laptop. The soft click echoed in the silence. "Call him," Nia said softly. Tiffany stormed toward the cockpit, her heels clicking aggressively. Brock stood in the aisle, crossing his arms and shaking his head at Naya. "You're making a big mistake, sweetheart. You don't fight the crew." Naya ignored him. She pulled out her phone and opened a secure app, Etherlink v4.0. It was a diagnostic tool. Usually only heavy maintenance crews had access to it. But Nia had built the back door. She saw the plane's ID Regal Air N902. She saw the fuel levels, the hydraulic pressure, and the cabin lighting controls. She didn't do anything yet. She just watched the data stream. Moments later, Tiffany returned. She wasn't with the captain, but she had the co-pilot with her. He looked young, tired, and annoyed to be dealing with a seating dispute. "What's the problem here?" the co-pilot asked. "She's refusing to move for a platinum member, and she's being aggressive," Tiffany lied effortlessly. "And, frankly, I think she's intoxicated. I smell alcohol." A gasp went through the cabin. This was the nuclear option. Accusing a passenger of being drunk was the easiest way to get them kicked off. Naya stood up. She was taller than Tiffany. "I haven't had a drink in 3 years. I am a software engineer working on a deadline, and this woman is harassing me because she doesn't like the way I dress." "It's not about your dress," Tiffany yelled, losing her composure. "It's about respect. And Tiffany's eyes darted around, looking for something to pin on Nia. Her eyes landed on Nia's open bag. Inside, nestled next to the laptop, was a small silver amenity kit. "And you're stealing!" Tiffany shrieked. She lunged forward and grabbed the amenity kit from Nia's bag. "These are Bulgari kits," Tiffany shouted, holding it up like a trophy. "These are for first-class passengers only. We haven't even handed them out yet. You stole this from the supply cart while I was seating Mr. Kensington." The co-pilot looked at Nia. "Mom, did you take this?" Nia looked at the kit. "That is my personal kit from my last flight. Look at the zipper. It's broken. I use it to hold my USB drives." Tiffany unzipped it. Dozens of high-end encrypted USB drives spilled out. She didn't apologize. She doubled down. "So you're stealing data too? Or maybe these are stolen goods?" "Enough," the co-pilot said, but he was looking at Naya, not Tiffany. "Ma'am, this is too much drama. We haven't even pushed back yet. I'm going to ask you to grab your bags and follow me to the jet bridge. We can sort this out with the ground police." "You're kicking me off," Naya asked, her voice dangerously calm. "I'm de-escalating the situation," the co-pilot said. "Tiffany says she doesn't feel safe with you on board." Tiffany crossed her arms and smirked. It was a look of pure, unadulterated victory. She had won. She had exerted her power, humiliated the person she judged as lesser, and protected the status quo. "Fine," Nia said. "I'll get off." She packed her laptop. She slung her bag over her shoulder. "But," Naya added, pausing at the cabin door. She looked at the co-pilot, then at Tiffany. "If I get off this plane does not take off. I promise you that." Tiffany laughed. Who do you think you are, God? No, Nia said, pulling out her phone and tapping the screen 3 times. I'm the woman who owns the code that tells your engines how to start. Nia walked off the plane and onto the jet bridge. Tiffany turned to the co-pilot. Can you believe her owns the code? Psychopath. The co-pilot shrugged. Let's just get the door closed. We're 10 minutes late. Tiffany went to the galley to prepare the pre-flight champagne for Mr. Brock. She felt a rush of adrenaline. She had cleaned up the cabin. But 5 minutes later, as the pilot tried to initiate the engine start sequence, something strange happened. The screens in the cockpit didn't light up with the usual green text. Instead, every single screen in the cockpit and every entertainment screen in the passenger cabin went black. Then a single line of red text appeared on every monitor from the pilot's display to the screen in front of Mr. Brock. System lockdown initiated. Authorization required. Dr. Nia Sterling. The lights in the cabin flickered and died. The air conditioning groaned and stopped. Tiffany stood in the dark galley holding a bottle of Dom Perignon. The silence on the plane was absolute. And then her intercom phone rang. The silence on a Boeing 777 is unnatural. When the engines are off and the auxiliary power unit APU dies, the plane becomes a sealed metal tube. It also becomes a greenhouse. Within 3 minutes of the blackout, the temperature in the cabin began to rise. The sleek, modern LED lighting was gone, replaced by the eerie, dull grey of the emergency floor path markers. In the cockpit, Captain Richard Anderson was frantically flipping switches. He was a veteran pilot with 30 years of experience, a man who had flown through typhoons and engine failures. But he had never seen this. APU is unresponsive, the co-pilot said, his voice trembling slightly. External power is connected, but the aircraft isn't accepting the current. It's like the main bus has been severed. Captain Anderson stared at the central display screens. They were supposed to show navigation charts, engine stats, and weather radar. Instead, every single screen, all 5 of the massive LCDs, displayed the same glowing red message system: lockdown initiated. Unauthorized removal of admin user. Key, Dr. Nia Sterling. Who the hell is Dr. Nia Sterling? Captain Anderson barked. The co-pilot swallowed hard. He looked toward the reinforced cockpit door. That's the passenger Tiffany just kicked off. Captain Anderson froze. He turned his head slowly. The passenger, in 1A. The one with the hoodie. Yes, sir. She said she owns the code, the co-pilot whispered, realization dawning on him like a bucket of ice water. She told us. She said if she leaves the plane, doesn't leave. Captain Anderson unbuckled his harness so fast it slammed against the seat. Get the manual override checklist. I'm going back there. He threw open the cockpit door. The first-class cabin was in disarray. Without the white noise of the engines, every sound was amplified. Passengers were muttering, shifting in their leather seats. Mr. Brock, the man who had stolen Nia's seat, was tapping his phone aggressively. No signal, Brock shouted. Why is the Wi-Fi down, stewardess? I need to make a call. Tiffany was standing in the galley, illuminated only by the light of her own cell phone. She looked pale. The smugness was gone, replaced by a flickering panic. She saw the captain emerge and straightened up, trying to salvage her authority. Captain, Tiffany said, her voice high and tight. We seem to have a power failure. I've told the passengers it's just a reset. It's not a reset, Anderson growled, stepping into her personal space. He pointed a finger at the darkened entertainment screen in seat 1A. Look at the screen, Tiffany. Tiffany squinted at the monitor. Key Dr. Nia Sterling. That's the girl, Tiffany stammered. The one with the attitude. That girl, Anderson said, his voice low and dangerous, is Dr. Nea Sterling. I just got a message from operations on my emergency pager. She is the chief systems architect for Ether Dynamics. Do you know who they are? Tiffany shook her head dumbly. They built the flight management computer for this aircraft. Anderson yelled, his composure cracking. She was on board to monitor the system for the transatlantic crossing. It was a high-level test flight protocol, and you kicked her off because you didn't like her shoes. The cabin went deadly silent. Mr. Brock dropped his phone. I didn't know, Tiffany whispered. She didn't look like an architect. She looked like trash. She is the only person who can turn this plane back on, Anderson said. The system thinks the admin has been forcibly removed, so it went into hostile takeover mode. It's an anti-hijacking protocol. The plane is a brick, Tiffany. A $200 million brick. Well, fix it, Mr. Brock shouted from seat 1A. Just reboot it. We can't, Anderson snapped at the passenger. It's military-grade encryption. We need her biometrics to unlock it. The captain grabbed his radio. Tower, this is Regal 902. We are dead in the water at the gate. We cannot push back. Repeat, we are grounded. Regal 902, the tower replied, their voice crackling through the emergency handheld radio. You are blocking gate B12. You have incoming traffic waiting. What is your ETA for movement? Indefinite, Anderson said, glaring at Tiffany. We have a personnel situation. Tiffany felt the walls closing in. The first-class passengers were staring at her. The judgment she had directed at Naya was now being beamed back at her, amplified 10 times over. Get her back, Anderson ordered Tiffany. Run up that jet bridge, find her and beg her to come back. Because if this flight is cancelled, the fuel cost alone is $50,000, and I'm going to make sure that comes out of your pension. Tiffany swallowed the lump in her throat. Yes, Captain. She turned and ran toward the open cabin door. But as she stepped onto the jet bridge, she realized the terrifying truth. Naya Sterling wasn't standing there waiting. The jet bridge was empty. The terminal door was closed. Naya was gone. Dr. Nea Sterling was not panicked. She was hungry. She was sitting in the Regal lounge near gate B14, calmly eating a bowl of clam chowder. She had scanned her boarding pass to get in before the system had fully registered her removal. Technically, she was in limbo. She had her laptop open, but she wasn't hacking anything. She was watching a live stream of the airport tarmac. She could see Flight 902 sitting at the gate. The navigation lights were off. The ground crew was swarming around the nose gear, looking confused. A tug truck was trying to attach to the wheel, but the brakes were locked. Nea took a sip of iced tea. Dr. Sterling. Nea didn't look up. She recognized the tone. It was the frantic, breathless tone of middle management in crisis. She turned slowly. Standing there was a man in a navy blue suit, sweating profusely. His tie was loosened. He was holding a walkie-talkie in one hand and a tablet in the other. His badge identified him as Director Graves, VP of Airport Operations. Behind him, looking like a wilted flower, was Tiffany. Her perfect hair was coming undone, and her mascara was smudged. "I'm Director Graves," the man said, panting. We need to talk." "I'm eating lunch," Naya said calmly. "I have a flight to catch. Oh, wait, I don't." I was kicked off. "Dr. Sterling, please," Graves said, dropping to one knee next to her chair, so he wasn't looking down on her. It was a submissive posture, one born of desperation. We know what happened. The plane is in lockdown mode. HQ says only a physical override from the registered admin can clear it. That's you. That is correct, Naya said. It's a feature I designed. It prevents bad actors from removing the pilot or the flight engineer and taking control of the aircraft. When the system detects the admin's device leaving the perimeter without a safe logout sequence, it assumes a hostile extraction. It kills the brain of the plane. It's brilliant, Graves said, forcing a smile. Truly. But we need you to come back and disable it. We have 300 passengers baking in there. We're losing the departure slot. If we don't move in 20 minutes, the crew times out and the flight is cancelled. Naya wiped her mouth with a napkin. She looked at Tiffany, who was standing behind Graves, staring at her shoes. I was told, Nia said, her voice cutting through the lounge noise, that I was a security threat. I was told I was stealing. I was told I didn't belong in first class. Graves turned to glare at Tiffany. Tiffany flinched. That was a misunderstanding, Graves said. A terrible, regretful error in judgment by a member of our staff. Is it an error? Nia asked. Or is it policy, because she seemed very confident that people like me don't sit in 1A? It is not policy, Graves cried. Dr. Sterling, on behalf of Regal Atlantic, I apologize. I will personally upgrade you to, well, you're already in 1A. I will refund your ticket, full refund, plus a voucher for future travel. Just please come press the button. Nia closed her laptop. She stood up. She towered over Graves. I don't want a voucher, Nia said. Name your price, Graves said, desperate. I want my seat back, Nia said. Seat 1A, the one I paid for. Done, Graves said immediately. Mr. Brock will be moved. I don't care if I have to strap him to the wing. And, Nia continued, her eyes locking onto Tiffany's, I want her to escort me back on board. I want her to carry my bag. And I want her to apologize to me loudly in front of the entire cabin. Specifically, I want her to tell them why the plane is delayed. Tiffany's head snapped up. I can't do that. It's humiliating. Humiliating? Nia raised an eyebrow. You accused me of theft in front of a cockpit crew. You called me a hobo to your colleague. You tried to ruin my reputation. Nia checked her watch. You have 19 minutes before the crew times out, Graves. Clock is ticking. Graves stood up. He looked at Tiffany. His face was hard as stone. Tiffany, Graves said. You have two choices. You can do exactly what Dr. Sterling asks, or you can hand me your badge right now, and I will have security escort you out of the airport for causing a catastrophic operational failure. Tiffany looked at the ground. She looked at the expensive lounge around her. She thought about her rent, her car payments, and the seniority she had spent 10 years building. She looked at Nia. Nia wasn't gloating. She was just waiting. It was business. Fine, Tiffany whispered. I can't hear you, Nia said. Fine, Tiffany snapped. She stepped forward and grabbed Nia's duffel bag. It was heavy. She grunted under the weight. Careful, Nia said dryly. Sensitive electronics. Lead the way, Dr. Sterling, Graves said, sweeping his arm toward the door. They walked out of the lounge, Nia in the lead, looking like a queen. Graves flanking her like a bodyguard, and trailing behind, struggling with the heavy leather bag, was Tiffany. They marched down the terminal concourse. People watched them. As they reached gate B12, the gate agents parted like the Red Sea. They scanned Nia's boarding pass. Beep! Welcome aboard, Dr. Sterling. They walked down the jet bridge. The heat from the plane hit them at the door. It was sweltering inside. Naya stepped onto the plane. The darkness was oppressive. The passengers were fanning themselves with safety cards. "She's back!" someone shouted from economy. Naya stopped at row 1. She turned to Tiffany. "The bag," Naya said, pointing to the spot under the ottoman in seat 1A. Tiffany dropped to her knees, shoving the bag into the space. She stood up, sweat dripping down her forehead, ruining her foundation. "And now," Nia said, crossing her arms, "the announcement." Tiffany picked up the cabin interphone. It was battery-powered, one of the few things working. Her hand was shaking. She pressed the button. Her voice echoed through the silent, hot plane. "Ladies and gentlemen." Tiffany's voice wavered. "May I have your attention?" Every eye fixed on her. Captain Anderson was watching from the cockpit door. Mr. Brock was watching from seat 4D, where he had been forcefully relocated by the co-pilot. We apologize for the delay," Tiffany began. "No," Naya corrected her loud enough for the first 5 rows to hear. "The truth." Tiffany closed her eyes. She took a breath. "I would like to apologize to Dr. Nia Sterling in seat 1A," Tiffany said, her voice cracking. "I wrongfully accused her of not belonging in this cabin based on her appearance. I removed her from the flight, not realizing that she is the safety architect for this aircraft. The plane shut down because I removed the person keeping it safe. This delay is entirely my fault. I judged a book by its cover, and I was wrong." Silence hung in the air. Thick, heavy silence. Then from the back of the plane a slow clap started. Then another, then a cheer. Naya didn't smile. She just nodded. She sat down in seat 1A. She pulled out her phone. She typed in a 6-digit code. "Authorization accepted. Rebooting systems. Whirr." The sound was beautiful. The air conditioning vents blasted a puff of cold fog. The lights flickered and blazed to life, bright and clean. The screens rebooted the logo of Regal Atlantic, spinning in high definition. The plane was alive. Naya put on her noise-cancelling headphones. But the drama wasn't over. Because while the plane was fixed, Tiffany's career was about to face turbulence she couldn't fly through. The captain walked over to Tiffany, who was trembling in the galley. "Get your things," Captain Anderson said softly. Tiffany looked up. "Captain." "You're not flying this leg, Tiffany," he said. "Get your bags. Get off my plane. You're done." The galley of a Boeing 777 is designed to be a place of efficiency, a hidden corner where magic happens before it is wheeled out on a cart. But now the forward galley of Flight 902 felt like a prison cell. The air was thick, heavy with the lingering heat of the shutdown and the sharp metallic scent of anxiety. Captain Anderson stood in the doorway of the cockpit, his frame filling the space. He didn't look like the friendly "welcome aboard" voice from the loudspeakers anymore. He looked like a man who had just seen his retirement bonus evaporate in jet fuel costs. Tiffany stood pressed against the stainless steel counters. Her hands, usually so steady when pouring vintage Bordeaux during turbulence, were trembling violently. She looked at the captain, then past him into the cabin, where 300 pairs of eyes were waiting for the show. "You can't do this," Tiffany whispered, her voice a desperate rasp. She tried to summon the icy authority she had wielded against Naya just an hour ago, but it crumbled in her throat. "Captain, think about this. I am the senior purser. I am the flight lead. If you remove me, You are flying below the FAA minimum crew requirements. You legally cannot push back without me." She clung to the regulations like a lifeline. It was her last card to play the bureaucratic checkmate. She forced a smile, a grotesque imitation of her customer service face. "You need me, Richard. Let's just smooth this over. I'll give her a free bottle of Dom. We'll pretend this never happened." Captain Anderson stared at her. His expression didn't change. It was a look of profound professional disappointment. "You think this is about a bottle of champagne?" Anderson asked, his voice low but carrying the weight of a sledgehammer. "Tiffany, you accused a passenger of grand larceny because of her hoodie. You triggered a hostile takeover protocol that locked down a $200 million asset. Operations just radioed me. The fuel trucks are on their way back because we burned through our taxi reserves just sitting here with the APU trying to fight the lockdown. This mistake cost the airline $50,000 before we even left the ground." Tiffany paled. I can fix it. I'll apologize again." "You're done fixing things," Anderson said. He reached for the interphone handset, but then stopped. He looked at her with a grim sort of pity. "And regarding the crew minimums, you really should check the manifest more carefully." "What?" Tiffany blinked. "Seat 34C, Anderson said. "Sarah Jenkins. Do you know her?" Tiffany's stomach dropped. She knew Sarah. Sarah was a junior flight attendant, a quiet girl with frizzy hair, whom Tiffany had mercilessly bullied on a flight to Dubai 3 months ago. Tiffany had written Sarah up for having a non-compliant shade of nail polish and had made her clean the economy lavatories for the entire 8-hour flight. "She's deadheading to London for a rotation," Anderson continued. "I just got off the line with crew scheduling. Sarah is active effective immediately. She is currently in the rear galley changing into her spare uniform. She is taking your position as lead." The humiliation hit Tiffany like a physical blow. To be fired was one thing. To be replaced in real time by the very person she had tormented was a special kind of karma. "Get your bag," Anderson ordered. "You are now a security liability. If you remain on board, I have to declare a security breach. Do you want the FBI waiting for you on the jet bridge, or do you want to walk off on your own?" Tiffany looked around the galley. Her domain. The crystal glasses, the neatly folded napkins, the fresh orchids. It was all slipping away. She grabbed her designer tote bag. Her fingers felt numb. She unpinned her senior purser wings from her blazer. Her hands shook so badly that the pin pricked her finger, drawing a tiny bead of blood. She dropped the wings on the metal counter with a hollow clink. "Move," Anderson said, stepping aside. Tiffany stepped out of the galley and into the aisle. The cabin was silent, but it wasn't empty. It was a coliseum. Every single passenger in the first-class cabin was awake, alert, and watching. And they weren't just watching. They were recording. A forest of smartphones was raised in the air. Cameras pointed directly at her face. The red recording dots seemed to burn into her retinas. She had to walk the full length of the first-class cabin to reach the exit door. 20 feet. It felt like 20 miles. She took the first step. Mr. Kensington, the man in seat 2A, whom she had practically worshipped earlier, the man whose coat she had taken with a curtsy, looked up as she passed. Tiffany caught his eye, a desperate plea for sympathy in her gaze. "Help me," her eyes said. "You know I'm good at my job." Mr. Kensington didn't smile. He didn't offer a nod of solidarity. He simply raised his glass of scotch in a mocking toast, his eyes cold, and turned his phone to get a better angle of her tear-streaked mascara. He was already composing the tweet. She kept walking. Her heels, usually a rhythmic sound of authority, now sounded clunky and loud on the carpet. She reached row 4. Mr. Brock, the loud, obnoxious man who had tried to steal Naya's seat, was sitting there. He had been humbled by the experience, stripped of his entitlement. He looked at Tiffany with genuine disgust. "You made me look like an idiot," Brock muttered as she passed loud enough for the cabin to hear. "I almost got banned because I listened to you." Tiffany flinched. The allies she thought she had, the wealthy, the elite, the powerful, were discarding her the moment she became inconvenient. And then she reached row 1. The suite was glowing. The privacy divider was down. Dr. Nia Sterling was sitting there, bathed in the soft blue light of the reactivated cabin controls. Naya wasn't filming. She wasn't jeering. She was simply working. Her fingers flew across her carbon fiber keyboard, repairing the code, ensuring the safety of the 300 souls on board. Tiffany stopped. She shouldn't have. She should have kept walking. But the rage, the embarrassment, and the sheer unfairness of it all boiled over. She couldn't leave without one last word. She wanted to hurt the woman who had taken everything from her. Tiffany leaned in her voice a poisonous whisper. "I hope you're happy. You destroyed a 10-year career over a seat assignment. You ruined my life." Naya stopped typing. The clack, clack, clack of the keyboard ceased. The silence in the cabin was absolute. Nia slowly turned her head. She took off her noise-cancelling headphones and placed them gently on the marble side table. She looked at Tiffany, really looked at her, with an expression not of anger, but of scientific curiosity, like she was examining a bug under a microscope. "I didn't ruin your life, Tiffany," Naya said. Her voice was calm, melodic, and projected perfectly to the back of the cabin. "You ruined it the moment you decided that my worth was determined by the price of my sneakers." "I was doing my job," Tiffany hissed, tears finally spilling over. "I was protecting the cabin." "No," Nia corrected her. "You were protecting your prejudice. You saw a black woman in a hoodie and you saw a threat. You didn't check the data. You didn't check the manifest. You operated on bias, not facts." Naya leaned forward, her eyes locking onto Tiffany's. "In my world, in the world of whole and aerospace, if you ignore the data because you don't like what it says, planes crash. People die. Today, the only thing that crashed was your ego. Consider yourself lucky." Tiffany opened her mouth to scream, to curse, to say something, but her hand spasmed on her bag. Her lipstick, a tube of Chanel Pirate Red that cost more than a week's worth of groceries, slipped from her trembling fingers. It hit the floor with a soft thud and rolled. It spiraled across the aisle carpet and came to a stop right at the toe of Naya's battered sneaker. The visual was striking, the symbol of Tiffany's superficial perfection lying in the dirt at the feet of the woman she had deemed unworthy. Tiffany froze. She made a move to bend down, to scramble for it, to reclaim some shred of her dignity. "Leave it," Nia said. Tiffany stopped mid-crouch. Naya used the toe of her sneaker to gently kick the lipstick back toward Tiffany. It skittered across the floor. "You're going to need to touch up your makeup," Naya said, her voice dropping to a cooler, steelier tone. "I hear the lighting in the unemployment line is very unforgiving." The cabin erupted. It wasn't just applause. It was a release of tension. Laughter rippled through the rows. Someone in the back shouted, "Bye, Felicia." Tiffany snatched the lipstick from the floor. Her face burned so hot, she thought her skin might melt. She clutched the tube like a weapon, spun on her heel, and ran. She sprinted the last 10 feet, bursting through the open cabin door and onto the jet bridge. The cool air of the terminal hit her, but it didn't cool her down. She heard the heavy mechanical thud of the aircraft door being sealed behind her. The sound of the locking mechanism engaging car-chunk was the most final sound she had ever heard. She was alone in the jet bridge. She walked up the ramp, her legs feeling like lead. As she emerged into the terminal gate area, the gate agents, her colleagues, people she had lunched with, avoided her gaze. They pretended to be busy typing. They knew. Everyone knew. Tiffany pulled her phone out of her pocket. It was buzzing incessantly. Notifications were stacking up so fast the screen was glitching. She opened X formally. Twitter. The top trending topic in the United States was #Flight 902. She clicked it. The first video was from Mr. Brock. It was titled "Racist Flight Attendant Gets Evicted by Tech CEO Genius. Must Watch." The video had been posted 6 minutes ago. It already had 40,000 retweets. She scrolled down. The comments were brutal. Imagine firing the woman who built the plane. LMAO. That flight attendant needs to be blacklisted. Disgusting behavior. Does anyone know her name? I want to call the airline. Tiffany dropped her hand. She watched through the terminal window as the massive Boeing 707 began to push back. The engines roared to life, a deep, powerful rumble that vibrated through the glass. She watched the plane turn. She saw the lights of the first-class cabin flick on, warm and inviting. She imagined Sarah, the girl she had bullied, pouring champagne for Nia Sterling. The plane taxied away, heading for the runway, heading for London, heading for the future. Tiffany stood still, clutching her Chanel lipstick, realized she had nowhere to go but the parking lot. The ride was over. At 38,000 feet, the world feels deceptively simple. The chaos of the ground, the noise, the heat, the egos disappears, replaced by the hypnotic hum of high bypass turbofan engines cutting through the stratosphere. For the first time in 4 hours, Dr. Nia Sterling could breathe. The cabin of Flight 902 had undergone a complete energetic shift. The tension that had earlier threatened to snap the fuselage in two had dissolved, replaced by a hyper-attentive, almost desperate level of service. Sarah, the young flight attendant who had been pulled from economy to replace Tiffany, moved through the first-class cabin like a ghost. She was terrified. She knew she was walking on a razor's edge. She had seen her boss destroyed in real time, and she was treating Nia not just as a passenger, but as a volatile nuclear core that needed to be kept stable. "Dr. Sterling," Sarah's voice was a soft whisper. She hovered by the suite holding a silver tray. "I brought you some warm chamomile tea. I noticed you were rubbing your temples earlier. I thought it might help with the stress." Nia looked up from her screen. She saw Sarah's hands trembling slightly. "Thank you, Sarah," Nia said, her voice warm. She accepted the cup. "You don't have to tiptoe around me. I don't bite, unless you try to steal my laptop." Sarah let out a breathless, nervous laugh. "I wouldn't dream of it, ma'am. Is there anything else I can get you? The chef has prepared the lobster thermidor, but if you'd prefer something lighter, I can have the galley whip up a salad." "The tea is fine for now," Nia said. "And Sarah, you're doing a great job. The cabin feels lighter without the previous management." Sarah blushed, a mix of relief and pride. "Thank you, Dr. Sterling. That means a lot." As Sarah retreated to the galley, Nia turned her attention back to the world below. She had connected to the plane's satellite Wi-Fi, a system she had helped optimize 3 years ago, and her inbox was currently melting down. It wasn't just her work email, it was everything. The video Mr. Brock had posted was no longer just a viral tweet. It was a global news event. CNN, airline chaos tech, CEO racially profiled, shuts down plane in protest. Forbes, the $200 million mistake. Why Regal Atlantic stock just dipped 4%. Twitter trending. Boycott. Regal, hashed I stand with Nia, and Hansomos fire Tiffany. Nia scrolled through the comments. Thousands of people sharing their own stories of airport discrimination. It was a tidal wave. She had pulled a thread, and the whole tapestry of the airline's reputation was unraveling. Suddenly her secure line rang. The screen of her carbon fiber laptop flashed red. Incoming secure video call. Caller ID, Elias Thorne. Chairman and CEO. Priority critical. Nia stared at the name. Elias Thorne. The man who sat at the top of the pyramid. The man who rarely spoke to anyone who made less than 7 figures. She adjusted her hoodie, put on her headset, and clicked accept. The video feed crackled to life. Elias Thorne was sitting in what looked like the back of a Maybach moving through a city at night. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in a week, despite the fact that the incident had only started 3 hours ago. His tie was undone. He held a tumbler of amber liquid in his hand. "Dr. Sterling," Thorne said. His voice was gravelly, the voice of a man used to giving orders now forced to negotiate. "I'm going to skip the pleasantries. My PR team is currently having a collective heart attack. My board of directors is screaming at me. And my stock has lost 12 points since you posted that little light show with the cockpit controls." "I didn't post anything, Elias," Nia said calmly, taking a sip of her tea. "I simply enforced a security protocol. Your staff removed the authorized administrator me from the flight. The system reacted defensively. That's a feature, not a bug." "It's a PR nightmare," Thorne snapped, though there was no real heat behind it. He sounded defeated. "We have cancelled 3 contracts in the last hour. Corporate accounts. Big ones. They don't want to be associated with a brand that profiles its engineers." "Maybe you should have thought about that before you hired people like Tiffany," Nia countered. Thorne sighed, rubbing his face with his free hand. "Let's talk about Tiffany. You'll be pleased to know she has been terminated, effective immediately. We didn't even wait for the plane to land. She's been notified via email and courier. She is stripped of her pension, her flight benefits, and she is blacklisted from the Sky Team Alliance. She will never work for a major carrier again." Nia listened. It was a harsh punishment, a life-altering one. "That sounds like damage control, Elias," Nia said. "You're cutting off a limb to save the body, but the infection is in the blood." "What do you want, Nia?" Thorne asked. "I'm prepared to offer you a settlement, a significant one. We can call it a consulting fee for the inconvenience, 500,000, wired to your account by the time you land in Heathrow. In exchange, you release a joint statement with us saying this was a misunderstanding and that Regal Atlantic is a leader in inclusivity." Nia laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. $500,000, Nia asked. "Elias, I make that in a month when my royalties come in. I don't need your money. And I certainly won't sell my integrity to help you fix your stock price." Thorne froze. He wasn't used to people saying, "Oh, to $500,000. "Then what? What is the price? Everyone has a price." "I want the manual," Nia said. What? The flight operations manual, Nia said, leaning into the camera. I want to rewrite Section 4, Subsection D regarding passenger interaction and profiling. I want mandatory implicit bias training for every single crew member, from the pilots to the gate agents. And I don't want it taught by some HR rep reading off a PowerPoint. I want it designed by my team. Thorne stared at her through the screen. You want to dictate our training policy? I want to ensure I can fly to a conference without being accused of stealing a toothbrush, Nia said sharply. I want a seat on your diversity and inclusion board, with veto power on hiring policies for senior staff. Thorne was silent for a long time. The streetlights flickered across his face in the back of his car. He knew he had no leverage. The world was watching. If Nia Sterling landed in London and gave a press conference saying Regal Atlantic tried to bribe her, the company might actually go under. Fine, Thorne grunted. You get the seat. You get the veto power. Send me the new protocols. One more thing, Nia added. Sarah, the flight attendant who stepped up. What about her? Promote her, Nia said. Make her the senior purser permanently, and give her a raise. She treated me like a human being, when it would have been easier to ignore me. Thorne nodded slowly. Done. Is that all? For now, Nia said. I'll see you at the board meeting next month, Elias. Don't be late. She cut the connection. Nia sat back in the leather seat, the adrenaline slowly fading. She hadn't just won a fight. She had shifted the culture of a billion-dollar corporation from 38,000 feet. She looked across the aisle. Mr. Brock, the man who had started this mess by demanding her seat, was looking at her. He looked different, smaller. Dr. Sterling, he asked tentatively. Nia turned. Yes, Mr. Brock. He swallowed hard. I just wanted to say, I saw the news. I saw who you are. I'm sorry. I acted like You acted like you were entitled to something you didn't earn. Nia finished for him. Yeah, Brock admitted, looking at his hands. I did. I learned a lot today. I deleted the video of you. You know, the one where I made fun of you initially. And I kept the one up where you shut down the plane. I hope that helps. Nia nodded. We live and we learn, Mr. Brock. Just remember, the person in the hoodie might be the one keeping the plane in the sky. The rest of the flight was a blur of quiet luxury. Nia slept for an hour, a deep, dreamless sleep. When the pilot announced their descent into Heathrow, the cabin lights warmed to a soft amber. The landing gear deployed with a reassuring thud. As the plane taxied to the gate, the captain came over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to London. On behalf of the flight deck, I'd like to extend a special thanks to Dr. Nia Sterling for her technical assistance today. We are honored to have you aboard. A smattering of applause broke out in the cabin. Nia didn't clap. She just packed her bag, the same battered duffel bag that had started it all. The door opened. This time there was no Tiffany blocking the way. Sarah stood there beaming. Goodbye, Dr. Sterling, Sarah said. Thank you. Nia walked onto the jet bridge. The cool, damp air of London hit her face. It felt clean. Waiting at the end of the jet bridge was not a shuttle bus, but a private escort. 2 men in black suits holding a sign. Dr. Sterling. They led her through a private customs channel, bypassing the chaos of the main terminal. Within minutes, she was sitting in the back of a Bentley, gliding toward the city. She pulled out her phone to check her messages one last time before switching to her UK SIM card. There was one message from an unknown number. It had arrived 10 minutes ago. Unknown number, Naya. It's Tiffany. Please, you have to help me. They fired me. They took my pension. I have rent due next week. I have a car payment. I know I was wrong, but this is too much. Please call the chairman. Tell him it was a mistake. I'm begging you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Nia stared at the words. For a brief second, she felt a pang of sympathy. She knew what it was like to struggle. She knew what it was like to worry about rent. She thought about the power she held. She could make one call to Elias Thorne and get Tiffany her job back. It would be the saintly thing to do. But then she remembered the look in Tiffany's eyes at JFK. The sneer. The absolute certainty that Nia was lesser. She remembered the way Tiffany had rallied the other passengers against her. Nia realized that if she saved Tiffany now, Tiffany would never learn. She would think that tears and apologies could fix racism. She would think that consequences were just suggestions. Sometimes the universe doesn't need a savior. It needs a teacher. And the lesson had to stick. Nia didn't type a reply. She didn't offer money. She didn't call the chairman. She swiped left on the message. Delete. Then she tapped the number. Block caller. She put the phone in her pocket and looked out the window as the London skyline came into view. The shard piercing the grey sky like a needle. She had work to do. She had a keynote speech to write. And she had a new manual to draft for Regal Atlantic. The car turned a corner, and Nia smiled. It wasn't a smile of vengeance. It was the smile of someone who had cleared the runway for takeoff. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you handle a bully at 30,000 feet. Dr. Nia Sterling didn't just get her seat back. She rewrote the rules of the game. Tiffany learned that in the modern world, prejudice isn't just morally wrong, it's a career-ending liability. And the most expensive mistake you can make is judging a book by its cover, especially when that book wrote the code for the engine you're riding on. Wow, I absolutely loved writing that ending. There is something so satisfying about seeing competence win over arrogance. But now I want to turn it over to you guys. This story was all about the invisible VIP, someone who looks regular but holds all the power. Have you ever had a moment where someone underestimated you, only to realize later they made a huge mistake? Or have you ever witnessed instant karma like Tiffany faced? Let me know your stories in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this long-form drama, please do me a huge favor. Hit that like button. It really helps the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story. Share this video with a friend who needs a reminder that you never know who you're talking to. Thanks for watching. Stay kind, stay humble, and I'll see you in the next video.